the summer of 1876, doctors at the Louisville Medical College received an unusual delivery. Inside wooden crates packed with ice and sawdust lay the dissected remains of a young woman, her heart, liver, kidneys, and brain carefully preserved for anatomical study. What they didn't know was that the woman had been murdered by her own husband, who sold her body parts for $23. This is the story of Jeremiah Blackwood, a man whose genetic isolation and moral corruption would make him one of Kentucky's most notorious criminals, a case that exposed the dark underbelly of 19th century medical education. Nestled deep in the Cumberland Mountains of eastern Kentucky, the Blackwood family had lived in isolation for over a century. By 1876, the remote hollow they called home had become a genetic dead end, where cousins married cousins and children were born with the telltale signs of severe inbreeding: pale, translucent skin, bulging eyes, and minds that functioned like children despite their adult bodies. Jeremiah Blackwood was the product of 4 generations of such unions. At 32 years old, he stood barely 5 feet tall, his spine curved unnaturally, his fingers webbed at the base. His pale blue eyes held a vacant stare that unnerved even his own family members. The Blackwood clan survived in a collection of ramshackle cabins connected by wooden walkways, the structures leaning against each other like conspirators sharing secrets. The smell of decay hung perpetually in the air: rotting wood, unwashed bodies, and something sweet and sickly that visitors could never quite identify. In spring 1875, Jeremiah acquired a wife through an arrangement that would horrify modern sensibilities. Sarah Fletcher, a 17-year-old girl from a family 20 miles away, was essentially sold to the Blackwoods to settle a debt her father owed. Sarah was everything the Blackwood women were not: healthy, intelligent, and beautiful. Her auburn hair caught the filtered sunlight, and her green eyes held a spark of intelligence that had not been dimmed by generations of genetic isolation. The journal she kept, discovered years later hidden beneath floorboards, reveals the horror of her daily existence. Her entries paint a picture of systematic abuse, isolation, and growing desperation. "He looks at me like I am not human," she wrote on June 15, 1875, "like I am some creature he has captured and caged. His family watches me constantly, afraid I might run, but where could I go? The mountains hold me prisoner as surely as any chains." Jeremiah's obsession with his wife went beyond mere possession. He had developed an unhealthy fascination with her body, constantly examining her, speaking to family members about her perfect organs in ways that even the hardened mountain folks felt uncomfortable. The Blackwood family's isolation might have continued indefinitely if not for the arrival of Dr. Marcus Whitmore in late fall 1875. Whitmore claimed to be a traveling physician, but his true purpose was far more sinister. A graduate of Louisville Medical College, he had been expelled from his teaching position for unauthorized experiments. Desperate and deeply indebted, he had turned to procuring fresh human specimens from medical schools that asked no questions about their origins. Whitmore was a tall, gaunt man with premature gray hair and hands that were always cold. He dressed in black suits and carried a leather medical bag that seemed too large for simple treatments. Children instinctively feared him. The doctor's real interest quickly focused on Sarah. During examinations, he would spend long minutes listening to her heart, testing her reflexes, examining her with an intensity that had nothing to do with medical care. "The woman has the finest specimens I have ever encountered," he confided to Jeremiah during one visit. "Her organs are untouched by disease, her bone structure perfect. Such quality is rare, especially in these mountains." What happened next was revealed through Jeremiah's confession and Dr. Whitmore's journal found when he was arrested. The two men formed a partnership that would lead to one of Kentucky's most shocking crimes. Whitmore convinced the simple-minded Jeremiah that Sarah's beauty made her valuable in ways beyond the obvious. He explained how medical colleges paid handsomely for quality specimens, how a single, perfect heart could bring more money than the Blackwood family saw in a year. The doctor's journal revealed cold calculation. The subject is young, healthy, and isolated. No one of importance will miss her. The husband is sufficiently mentally deficient to be manipulated, yet capable of following instructions. Throughout winter 1875, Whitmore made frequent visits, bringing small gifts, tobacco, whiskey, coins. He spoke constantly of money that could be made, painting pictures of wealth beyond Jeremiah's imagination.
Sarah sensed the approaching danger. "Dr. Whitmore was here again today," she wrote on February 3, 1876. "He looks at me the way a butcher looks at meat. Jeremiah grows more agitated each time the doctor visits. I fear what they are planning." The murder took place on a humid night in July 1876. Sarah had fallen ill with a minor fever. Whitmore arrived under the pretense of treating her condition, carrying a case containing more than medical instruments. The doctor administered what he told Jeremiah was medicine to help Sarah sleep. In reality, it was laudanum and chloroform, enough to render her unconscious. Whitmore wanted her organs fresh when he removed them. Working by lamplight in the squalid cabin, Whitmore systematically removed Sarah's heart, liver, kidneys, brain, and sections of her nervous system with surgical precision. Each organ was carefully preserved in alcohol-filled jars. Jeremiah watched the entire procedure, his damaged mind unable to fully comprehend what was happening. When asked later why he allowed his wife's murder, he could only repeat, "The doctor said she was worth money," said her insides were perfect. Before you continue watching, I want to ask, what state are you watching from? These dark chapters of medical history occurred in communities that still exist today. Let me know in the comments where you're located. Within days, Whitmore was in Louisville with his gruesome cargo. Medical college records show payments of $23 made to Dr. M. Whitmore for quality anatomical specimens. $23 was substantial for the impoverished Blackwoods, but for Sarah, it represented the ultimate devaluation of human worth. The organs were used in medical lectures throughout fall 1876. Students learned anatomy using a murder victim's heart, completely unaware of the crime that procured their materials. Back in the hollow, Jeremiah told Sarah had run away. Given her obvious unhappiness, this was accepted without question. Her belongings were divided among the Blackwood women, and life continued as if she had never existed. The truth might have remained buried if not for Whitmore's greed. Emboldened by success, he began seeking other isolated families with healthy members who might be convinced to part with relatives for money. His next target was the Wilson family in Tennessee. But the Wilsons proved less susceptible than the mentally impaired Jeremiah. When Whitmore approached them with his proposition, they reported him to the sheriff. The investigation slowly unraveled a network of body trafficking throughout the region. When authorities reached the Blackwood Hollow in October 1876, they found Jeremiah wearing clothes clearly too small, clothes that belonged to his runaway wife. When confronted, Jeremiah initially stuck to the runaway story. But faced with evidence and his limited mental capacity, he eventually confessed to the entire scheme. "She was always trying to leave," Jeremiah told investigators, his words slurred. "The doctor said her parts were worth money to the schools, said they needed them for learning. I didn't want to hurt her, but the doctor said it wouldn't hurt, that she would just go to sleep." When asked why he didn't let Sarah leave if she was unhappy, his response revealed twisted logic. "She was mine. Papa traded for her. The doctor said I could still have the money for her parts, even if I couldn't keep her." The trial began in February 1877 and became one of Kentucky's most sensationalized proceedings. Evidence was overwhelming. Sarah's journal provided clear documentation of abuse and her growing fear. Whitmore's notes painted him as a calculating predator. But medical college administrators' testimony truly shocked the courtroom. They admitted rarely questioning specimen sources, that cash payments were common, and that demand was so high they deliberately avoided asking questions about procurement methods. The revelation that respected institutions were participating in trade that encouraged murder sent shockwaves through Kentucky's establishment. Professors resigned in disgrace, and new regulations were hastily implemented. Dr. Whitmore, as mastermind with education to understand his actions' implications, was sentenced to death. Jeremiah presented a complex problem. His severe mental impairment made it questionable whether he understood his crime's nature. After extensive testimony from alienists, he was found guilty but sentenced to life imprisonment rather than execution. Whitmore was executed on June 15, 1877, exactly 2 years after Sarah's first journal entry expressing fear. He maintained he had provided valuable service to medical education, unable to comprehend that his actions had destroyed multiple lives. In the trial's sensationalism, Sarah often seemed secondary in her own murder case. Newspapers focused on trafficking details and the Blackwood family's deterioration, but Sarah's journal reveals an intelligent young woman trapped by circumstances beyond her control. She wrote, "I dream of cities sometimes, places where people read books and discuss ideas, where women can walk freely. I wonder if such places really exist,